So as I was sitting back there pondering, I thought, what could I ask? And so the thing that I would like to ask is, what could I ask? What would you say, like, for me, where I'm at?
That falls right into what we were just talking about, because it's the inspiration that we're encouraging you to reach for. So
Bring it on.
So that's not the way it works.
No, just for reaching, though, just to see.
Well, here's the thing. It is appropriate for you to say, Abraham, I am certain I'm in the receiving mode. You feel that way?
I do.
And the reason that I'm certain that I'm in the receiving mode is because
Of alignment.
And it feels like
Bliss.
And bliss is like
Just float. Bliss.
And
Connection.
Connection and bliss feel like
It feels fabulous. Feels great.
Feels like ease, feels like certainty, feels like understanding, feels like readiness, feels like readiness to understand, feels like readiness to be surprised and delighted.
Yes.
So, surprised and delighted in what way? Focus for us a little bit here. Surprised and delighted in what way?
In the way of ease in alignment.
So I'm already in ease and alignment, and I understand that ease and alignment, from what you just said, Abraham, is tuning into these high frequencies, and I believe that I'm there. Feel as good today as I ever remember feeling. So I believe that I'm in the receptive mode, and in the receptive mode, the things that have been on my mind most recently that the receptive mode would serve me about are
just tuning in and staying there to receive the bliss and just to feel it in every molecule.
But in what way would you like this bliss to manifest? In the way of a thing, in the way of a manifestation that is material in nature, in the way of ideas, in the way of relationships. In other words, you are at the precipice of this receiving mode. What is the next logical step for you? Because if you feel as you say you feel, and you do, then you're in that ready place that we've been describing already today. And isn't it interesting, the timing of this conversation, given what we've been talking about? And you can feel that she's right there. And so what are you ready to receive? Because the thing that we want you to understand is your readiness to receive should not come out of Esther's mouth.
Yes.
Because if Esther just says it and surprises and delights you in some way, all that has been demonstrated here is that Esther's in the receiving mode.
Right.
And so this is your opportunity for you to receive from your receiving mode.
Oh, right on. So the list. Okay, just hang on. There it is. So it's the ability to receive the financial abundance. I love Esther's Monster Bus. I put on the Money and the Law of Attraction DVD just to watch that monster bus pull into that yard. That to me, and every time one goes by on the highway, my husband was frantically trying to find a nice-sized motorhome in place of the monster bus, and I said to him, I hope you realize that this is just a lesson in law of attraction. I don't need you to go out and find my monster bus. It's just to see if I can, I want to attract it in. I want it to pull in the yard and park, air brakes come on, and they pass me the keys. That's where, and so that's...
Esther was just describing to the nice men who brought her backstage, because they come through the back part of the ship and down through the fun part to see that you're not ever going to see. And there's a big lever on a big door, and a big door moves very slowly. Esther's certain that if she got in the way, it could cut her in half. It's a big, heavy door. And she said, I once had a door like that, not quite that heavy, but it was a Star Trek kind of door. I just pushed the door and whoosh, the door opened. Get into the details of what this means. Do you know what it feels like to be behind the wheel of a machine like that has that kind of power and that kind of agility and that kind of air ride? Can you imagine it? Can you feel it? Do you want it?
I want it. I was on one.
So you know that feeling of getting out on the road every morning with a whole new world ahead of you, with all kinds of things that will surprise and delight you. No 2 days the same ever. The world just opening to you wider and wider in every day? Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely.
Are you
Yeah.
talking about the people that you will meet as you will settle in for the night, and the nest that you will set, and as you get yourself ready, and as you put out your sliders and you turn on your light and you settle in for the night? Is that what you're talking about?
I am talking about that. Yes, the experience.
So being in the receiving mode, now you describe to us for the pleasure of it. Because you see, this is the point of the receiving mode. A lot of the receiving mode is that clear pleasure where dialogue or thoughts or images are coming to you. If you can accept that you don't need the manifestation to observe, that the idea of it will flow through you. The idea of it at first is the manifestation of it. That the thought is the manifestation of it. And that the thought which is the manifestation of it is enough for right now. As you allow the thought which is the manifestation to thrill you right now. So there's no angst, there's no lack, there's no where is it, there's no I can't afford it. There's just the thrill, the pureness of being there in it, describing it, smelling it, feeling it, knowing it, living it. You can't hang around in that vibration very long before someone does hand you the key.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. And then we will acknowledge softly, but we don't want to get too carried away in this. We will acknowledge softly that the actualization of something like that can go on to surprise and delight you endlessly. The thrilling pioneer spirit, the showing yourself what you're capable of, the intuitiveness that flows through you, the sensitivity that was what's going on in traffic, the understanding of how to understand all of the endless components of such a thing, the ability to troubleshoot when something isn't working right, the ability to stay in your alignment even if something isn't working right. One day, Jerry and Esther were in the monster bus, and they were driving through Louisiana, and they were just getting ready to get onto those long roads with lots of water all around them for 100 miles or more. And the monster bus just shut itself off. Just shut itself off, as if to say, let's just take a segment of refreshment now. Very unsettling, because there's no place to go. And so Esther said, because she was blissful, Abraham, what's going on? And we said, it's the indicator that lets you know how much oil is in the thing. And Jerry said, how much oil is in the thing? And we said, all the oil you'd ever need. But it's the sensor that's saying there's not enough oil, even though there is enough oil. And so it was worried, it was programmed to not let them drive, because without oil you will destroy your engine. And so the sensor was bad and giving bad information. And so since they knew that, since they were in the receiving mode, they just let it stop, and then they turned it back on and drove further. And when it stopped again, they turned it back on and they drove further. And when it stopped again, they turned it back on and they drove further. And when it stopped again, they turned it back on until they could get to a place 150 miles away that could put a new sensor in that was more sensible. But what we're getting at is, in moving with this kind of machinery, with all of these moving parts, it gives you the opportunity to discover even more sensitivity, even more capability, even more amazing experience. Everything comes with contrast, doesn't it?
It does.
And so are you reaching for this magnificent machine to be without contrast, or are you reaching for it for the delight of a whole new kind of contrast? A whole new kind of exposure to life, to evoke from you a whole new kind of clarity, and a whole new kind of wisdom, and a whole new kind of stability, and a whole new kind of vitality, a whole new kind of living. Is everything that you're asking for the more that it will draw forth from you?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good enough.
And I have one other thing. I have wanted to see energy. I've watched some of the DVDs where you say, I'm going to goose up the energy, and for those in the crowd can see energy, then you'll really see it and you hear them go, oh, ah. And to me, it's just like, oh, yeah, there's a curtain. So, like, it doesn't, like, so how do I open the channels to bring that through?
Well, what is your intent in it? What is your intent? Does it validate your worthiness?
No, I don't think so. It's just to be able to see that extra layer of energy.
The reason we're asking is because you have trained your physical eyes for the specifics of this time and space. And your eyes are working very well for that. To see energy requires a sort of diffusion of that vision. It's looking and seeing something different than you've trained your eyes to see. And so sometimes you see it. Esther is not visual in that way. Esther is more auditory. So Esther can receive us. She receives the knowing. She receives the undeniable impression of what to say. But other than the energy that she sees around you when we are reaching for you in the crowd, Esther does not really see energy. She has a friend who can actually see Jerry roaming around the stage with her. She can actually see him standing next to her, usually about right here, often over there by Peter, because he's keeping an eye on what Peter's doing. And he really likes Peter. Often moving around with you, often inspiring you to the idea. That was one of the things that he always liked to do when he was in his physical body. He would wait for the part of the conversation where he sensed that there was something that you might like to know that you're not asking, and then he would interrupt and ask it. And he's still doing that, only he's doing it through those like you who are in the receiving mode, you see. And so we don't want you to get too twirled up in the idea of seeing energy. It's better to sense it, but sometimes it can catch you. Some conditions are more conducive to it than others. Are any of you good at seeing energy? In other words, you see it on occasion, or you see it every time? What are these conditions like? You see energy? Are you seeing anything around Esther? A sort of aurora borealis sort of swirling around here? Sort of the same thing. It is sort of the same thing. So as you're looking in the direction, you're much too close, you have to go out there.
Okay.
But as you're looking in the direction of Esther, rather than looking at her, sort of try to look through her. Imagine that there's something right behind her that you'd like to see, and she's sort of transparent, and you'd like to look right through her gizzard and see something behind her, maybe a red dot on the curtain behind. So sort of soften your vision. If you are wearing glasses and you can remove them, you will more likely see energy without your glasses, because your glasses focus you into the specifics, and the energy is less specific. Anybody seeing anything? So sometimes what you see is energy around Esther. It's sort of like if she were standing against a wall with a bright light on her, you would see a shadow on the wall behind. But instead of a shadow, you see the absence of a shadow. It's light. Anyone seeing any of that? So we'll goose it up just a little bit to see if you can catch a glimpse of it. If you don't see it, it's because you're not worthy. If you don't see it, it is because either the room isn't conducive to it, often as you're looking in the direction of it. Now, is anyone seeing anything? All right, so now, are you aware that it is increasing? Watch it. And then as we move aside, sometimes you can see it still standing there. Sometimes you can see it easier on the video than you can looking directly at Esther. Watch the video for a moment. Yes? Step away. And for our next magic trip, there's a rabbit. So we've accomplished nothing, except for pointing out to you that your eyes are meant to see things other than energy. Energy is what you translate through your solar plexus. And your best way of seeing or knowing or understanding energy is through the emotions that you feel. But it's always a nice thing when you catch a glimpse of something. Yes?
Yes.
Enough?
And just want to say thank you. I love the rampages of appreciation. I love the ability to come here and meet with you, with Esther, and with all the other Abrahamsters that are on board. This has just been fantastic.
Your appreciation is so easy to feel, and your clarity too. In other words, just keep feeling this underpinning of well-being that you've got going on, and watch how it will continue to blossom into things that will just continue to surprise and delight you.